was going by, and he pulled in and parked right in front of us at that time. And he walked back, and I was real happy because I thought, oh, we'll get another witness here. And it was pretty nice. And so he walked back, and I was just ready to take this fantastic picture. And I thought, oh, this is going to be a beautiful picture because I could see the windows and it over the freeway, and it just proved that UFOs exist.
To another episode of In Conversation With. And today we have Dev, and how do I pronounce your last name?
Rugne.
Rooney. Rooney. Okay.
Yeah, the G is
I'm,
silent.
G is silent. I thought so, but I wasn't sure. And I don't want to make a mistake of saying your last name wrong. Everyone spells mine wrong. They Neal, Neil, O'Neill. Anyway, so Dev, state director for Northern California MUFON, and we've had them. Most of the folks from California on the show, and they've all been terrific because you guys really have the backs of the experiencers, and in this case, you are an experiencer yourself, uh, which
Yes.
really, which is it's really helpful because you
Well,
get it.
yes, and I think that puts people at ease. I'm on the ERT team as well, and even before ERT, even before MUFON had the ERT, I took on a lot of the abduction cases, and I think people felt at ease knowing that I've had experiences as well.
Why do you think, originally going back quite a ways, back to Deborah Cobble's time, that MUFON would lose interest in a very credible case because they saw beings from the craft?
Oh, oh, why would they?
Yeah. Well,
Um,
what do you think was going on back then that they felt that way? Oh my God, Deborah Cobble saw children in the backyard. We're not interested in your case, despite all the evidence, the hard evidence, the physical evidence, and it just amazed me that they did.
I think early on, back in the 60s and 70s, I think mostly the field investigators um, were more interested in the nuts and bolts of the craft. Obviously, if there was an unknown craft being seen and it landed or left any kind of trace evidence, there's going to be something that they could actually see, photograph, test, with Geiger counters. So there was trace evidence, and so I think back then it was more geared to the nuts and bolts of uh,
Right.
the UFOs, and so as time went on, obviously, people were coming forward with their accounts of seeing entities or beings, and ultimately talking about being on the crafts. It was more just witness testimony, I think, and they were just like, well, he said, she said, kind of thing. There wasn't a
Yeah.
lot of evidence to support that really happened, I think, is what I gathered reading a lot of um, people's accounts of being field investigators way back when. And um, I can't remember his name, um, but he was a field investigator for MUFON early on. Ray Fowler. So
Oh, Ray Fowler. Yeah,
yeah,
sure.
so he wrote. many books about Betty Andres and Luca's accounts. And I don't know, how familiar you are with her story, was
Very.
really amazing. I had the pleasure of communicating with her back in the early 90s. And she was a great artist. So she, in her books, she drew of the accounts of what had happened and what she saw, what she experienced, really brought it to life. And I am a very visual person. Um, and when I
You're talking to one.
and when I wrote my own book, UFO Investigator, I wanted this book because I profiled 30 close encounter cases that I did in the book. And I didn't want it just to be words. I wanted to show the reader what these people saw. And so I tried to get them to uh, draw the best that they could of what craft they saw or whatever. And I did hire some digital artists to bring those to life because in my book, I also wanted it to be published in color. I wanted it to pop. I wanted, when they read these accounts, I wanted to draw them in with not just what had happened, but they could actually look at what the witness drew. And I helped by bringing that to life by hiring digital artists. And it's, I can't, I got to be honest, I have always been fascinated by the different type craft that people saw. Even
Mhm.
I have seen many UFOs, and they were different shape type craft. And so in my book, I think it was chapters 3 through 6. I divided them into like chapter 4 triangular UFOs, disc shaped UFOs. So every chapter had different shaped uh, UFOs that were seen, and that was important to me when I wrote the book to kind of put those in that kind of category. And I was really proud to that a lot of people enjoyed the book because I was trying to gear more about getting reaching readers that weren't UFO investigators, that weren't necessarily experiencers or saw UFO. Just anybody could pick up this book and be fascinated by what they were reading. Even my own mother uh, picked up this book. She didn't read books, and I had given a copy to my parents, and I was surprised that she even read it. But she said it was really interesting because she said, you had pictures and it kept her interest. So I was really glad to hear that.
Well, this is why on Breaking the Silence, I try to make it as visual as possible. I mean, I'm an artist, and I like the same things that you do. When I had Betty Andresen's book, I don't know where it is now since I moved from LA. A lot of those books are missing. I'd like to get them back. But I remember the drawings a great deal, and I remember that she did a drawing of the engine, or what they described to her as the inner workings of their power uh, to move the craft. And I thought that was fascinating because there were those spheres, those
Right.
balls, and they spun, and it made me think of George Obdansky's craft, and we've seen other crafts that have those spheres hanging underneath them. And in the case of uh, Bob Lazar and the Area 51 Sport model, those were internal. They were gravity generators inside. So there's a real consistency there, and of course the visuals really bring it to life.
What I
So
like what she brought up too was when the UFO was actually landed, and she said, to her it was a certain size and relatively small. But she said when you walked in, this thing was just huge inside. And that was really kind of the first time I remembered reading something like that. And of course, as time went on, a lot more people were talking about that same type of thing, where the craft seemed relatively small from the outside, but then once you were in, it was massive, massive. That even held, in one case, I remember reading, the guy said, well, him and his friends were actually taken inside their car, the whole car, them and the car were taken, and they were brought inside the craft, and there were other UFOs parked. This is huge. And I always found that really fascinating back when I first read about that.
Was that a case that took place in L.A.? Because I know of that of a case just like that, and I have this friend, I haven't seen him in years, who was with his friend, and they were driving towards the beach, and the next thing they knew, they ended up on Western Avenue, up above in the hills there in Glendale. Their whole
Yeah,
car
no,
was
this was a
picked up.
different case.
Yeah, the same thing.
Yeah, yeah,
The whole car was picked up and brought on board the craft, and he remembered much of that before he ever went under hypnosis with Yvonne.
yeah.
So Dev, what about you? What about, obviously you took up this interest because you have these experiences and you've seen UFOs yourself. Same reason here. I've seen lots of UFOs, and I've also had lots of things happen, even even as of last night. Um, Something happened again, which is why my voice is funny and I'm a little punchy today.
Right.
So
Um,
what?
well, I wanted just to say that, my entire life, I was fortunate enough to have my mother, someone that I could talk to about it. And she would listen, and she didn't really know what to make about a lot of it. But what was interesting was, when I was talking to her about all these things, and, she remembers me as a teenager, I would be reading to her these abduction stories while she be washing dishes in the kitchen, and she would just kind of get freaked out saying, why are you trying to scare me? I go, I'm just telling you, because I'd be so excited, right? Telling her, reading to her all these stories and stuff. And she had told me that I was missing 2 times in my life, and it really bothered her. The first time, we were living in Sacramento, and I think like 2 years old, and she was hanging up clothes outside, and she said, you were just sitting there on the grass, and I gave you a little toy to play with, and the neighbor lady came over, and because we were living in an apartment building area, and the lady said, can you watch my son, who was about my age, while she was doing something? And my mom said, sure. So us two kids were sitting there, and my mom said, what was so strange was it didn't seem like a lot of time went by when the woman came running out saying, our kids are at the store. And my mom said, well, I don't know what you're talking about. They're right here. And she realized we were gone. And she was just like, wait a minute, what? And the woman said, because in those days, a neighborhood, like a little grocery store, everybody knew everybody, right? So they
Right.
were
Sure.
telling her, hey, your kids are here, come get them. And my mom said it bothered her so bad she never forgot it, because she said, I couldn't understand how you guys got to that store. You would have had to walk quite a bit of distance over railroad tracks. I mean, it just didn't make any sense. And when they went there to get us, she said, there we were sitting there, and she said it was the craziest thing. And then another time, I told her I remembered being lost. I was about 9 years old, and we were living in Sunnyvale. We had
Yeah,
moved
I know
from,
anyway.
what was that?
I said I'm familiar with Sunnyvale.
Oh,
I'm from
okay.
the Bay Area. Yeah.
Right. And we had just moved and we didn't have a phone or anything. And or if we just got one, I didn't know it or I didn't know anything. I didn't know our address. I didn't have a phone number. I didn't know anything other than I was supposed to come home from school. I was 9 years old. And she said, I get this phone call from some random gas station saying that you're there and you're lost. And I said, I remember being lost and asking some man at the gas station that I'm lost and I don't know where I live and I don't have a phone number. And she says, I didn't understand what was going on, how even they got our phone number. And then I said, I don't have a memory of coming home. Do you know how I came home? And she said, no. I said, what? I'm your kid. I'm your 9-year-old girl, lost, and you don't remember? And she said, no. And she says, that's so strange. Like, how did you get home? I said, that's what I want to know.
Hmm.
Like, how did you get home? We both couldn't remember. It was just the strangest thing. And, but anyway, so basically what happened was when I was 11, we were living in Newark, California, and it was the summer of 69. And we were renting this house that had a big tree in the front. Now, this was somebody planted this tree on a man-made mound, okay? And the mound was surrounded by this rock. And on one side, I remember it was like a coral, like it had little holes in it, the rock, right? So it was
Mhm.
kind of sharp to touch. But I'd be up in the tree, sitting up there, spying on the kids. Um, and it was the summertime, and I was in shorts and everything. And I've been up there every day in the summertime, so it was no big deal.
In the tree.
In the tree, sitting up there,
Okay.
spying on the kids. And then one day, just I was up in the tree, and the next moment, I'm coming to consciousness. I'm waking up off the ground about 6 feet away from the tree. And I was on my back, and I remember kind of coming to, and I was like, where am I? And I knew I was up in the tree. So I quickly got up and I was brushing myself off, thinking, what happened? And I walked to the tree and I looked up there and I was thinking, if I would have fell, I wouldn't have landed way over there.
Mm-hmm.
And and I just couldn't understand it. So what happened was I kind of forgot about that whole situation. And around that time, I was going up on the roof, climbing up on the roof and laying up there, staring at the sky, watching the sky, thinking about what is out in space. And I had a heavy interest in astronomy. And my mom was getting very mad at me for being up on the roof, and she was telling me stop going up there, but I kept sneaking back up there. And finally, she was telling me, what the hell are you doing? Why are you keep going up there?
It's a
And
place to be.
she was
I
like,
was up there all the time.
she was like, what are you doing? Why do you keep going up there? And I go, well, I'm just laying up there looking at the sky. And she goes, for what? And I go, well, I'm just thinking about outer space. And she says, oh my God. She goes, stay off the roof. We're renting this place. What if you did something to the roof? She was so worried we were going to get kicked out or something, right?
Yeah.
And I felt that was strange that she was more concerned about the roof than me maybe falling
You
off and
falling
breaking
off.
my neck, right?
Yeah.
But I was at that time of my life, I just became really obsessed with, watching those B movies on TV. Everything was, Earth versus the flying saucers. And I was
Love
just,
that movie.
oh, yeah, I own it. In fact, I like this.
I have that too. I have the ship as well.
Yeah, and
And Paul Frees did the voice. This is a voice coming to you from thousands of miles in space.
I love
And
it.
what's interesting is when the helmet gets knocked off of one of them, they have round heads and big eyes and kind of look gray like.
Yes. Oh my God. So
I
funny.
don't know.
They're telling
Anyway,
us.
but we
They're,
digress.
yeah,
So you're watching
they
B
tell us.
movies.
Yeah, just was really into UFO, flying saucers, everything. Just it was everything, flying
Trip
saucers and stuff.
trips to the library.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah,
Yep.
and then after a few years, the national um, oh gosh,
National Geographic,
no, they what do you call it? It was like a
International.
where they had like Travis Walton's case in there. You would walk in the grocery store and it would be right on the stand.
Oh,
Ah,
yeah, that was before Hynek's International UFO Reporter. That was a magazine, and I can see it in my mind very
yeah.
clearly. And I see UFO on it, and then the
Well,
name.
gosh, I can't even believe that I can't
It
even
happens.
remember. But
Your hard drive's getting fuller.
yeah, I mean, gosh.
Yeah.
National Enquirer.
Now, National Choir,
Enquirer, yes. Yes.
and they had Travis Walton's. I mean, the first I knew about it was from the book. I heard about it in the
No,
newspaper too.
I would actually see the National Enquirer at the store, and they had they profiled Travis Walton and Charlie. Um,
Charles Hickson
yes.
and now I'm drawing a blank. Uh,
Um, but yeah, I mean,
I'm very familiar with that case, being that I'm friends with
Calvin Parker and Charlie
Calvin Parker,
Hickson.
Charles Hickson. Yeah, I'm very familiar with the case because I'm friends with Philip Mantle, and he and Dr. Irina Scott have done the most in-depth investigation of that case ever done in the history of UFOs, and
Yeah.
it's ongoing still. 50 more witnesses come forward, so I'm very
Isn't that
aware of
something?
that one, and I
Yes.
remember reading about it too.
Well, that was in the National Enquirer. I remember seeing these cases, and I was even Snippy the horse. Remember all that?
Yeah,
So
yeah, I
we
do.
didn't have the internet. We didn't have the internet. We had the library. We had whatever we can get our hands on, and uh, and then I remembered. And then I ended up remembering what happened, and the fact that I didn't fall out of the tree. I was just waking up off the ground, but I knew something happened. So so that was in 1969, and then I started having like sightings. Like in 78, I saw two discs flying over my head, and I actually reported it with APRO.
Oh,
So
yes.
yeah, that was the spring of 78. So I wrote to
That was
them.
that was a prolific time. I mean, especially for me. I saw more UFOs during that time in the 70s than almost any other time in my life.
Right. So I ended up seeing that. It was a daytime sighting. These two things, there was two of them, and they flew right over my head. And then I had a this backyard sighting in '83 of this kind of a blimp shaped, kind of oval object. It was about 30 feet, I would say, in length, and it was just hovering between the two houses. And I had went outside to get my cat. I had put her out there, but that didn't even make sense to me either, because that cat, I never put her outside ever. And I don't know how she got out, but I knew she was out there. And that's when I went out and I saw that object sitting there. And it startled me because it was big and it was just sitting there. And
Silent.
yep. And I was kind of freaked out about it a little bit. Maybe because I got startled that when I saw it, I went and got the cat and I just wanted to get back in the house, which was crazy because I was so into UFOs. I couldn't understand why I didn't just, look at it, get under it, everything. And I just wanted to get back in the house. And I remember my father, um, he had just got off work and it was still daylight out. It was still like dusk or whatever. And I put the cat down and I said, Dad, and he was snoozing because he had two jobs and laying there on the couch and he had his eyes closed. And I said, Dad, I said, come outside. The Goodyear blimp is going to hit the house. And when I said that, it just sounded ridiculous to me
Mm.
because it wasn't a blimp. But I think in my mind, I was trying to make sense of it.
Sure. Yeah.
But what was strange was after that, I don't even remember what happened. And I forgot about that for a while. So when I did remember, I ended up calling Goodyear and asking them, hey, do you have anything small, like a 30-foot dirigible? They said, no, we don't have anything that small. And we would never be in a residential area. And I said, oh, okay, well, just checking. Because I was just trying to, figure it out myself. Um, and, there's just all these incidents that were continuing happening to me. Um, Ended up having I had went to Gualala on the coast there. Do you know where that is?
No, I'm not familiar with it.
Okay, well, it's just a small area on the coast, and was there on vacation with a friend, and this was 92, and got there kind of late and went into the hotel room and was standing out in the balcony and couldn't see anything but the sky, the stars. And my friend was out there having a cigarette and I was standing there looking at the sky and she said, oh look. And I looked up and there was this small white object going by and she said, oh look, they followed you here. I go, don't say that.
Uh,
Well, that night something happened. In the middle of the night I got woke up and it kind of had a smell of like sulfur, and there was a strong smell, and I thought I heard glass breaking. So that woke me up, and I'm looking around and I turn on the lights and I'm trying to find any kind of broken glass. There's nothing. I even went out into the balcony because there was an ashtray out there and I wanted to see, did that break? No, there was no glass. I even thought that there was, um, how you have an ice bucket? I thought maybe the ice bucket, the ice was making some kind of noise. No, it was all melted. But I had an overwhelming sense of fear, like somebody was there. And I kind of got scared to shut off the light, but I was like, oh God, all right, just shut off the light. Got back in bed and the something was there and I didn't want to open my eyes. And I just decided, okay, just open your eyes. So I opened my eyes and there was a short black hooded figure at the end of the bed. I couldn't see the face. And I just kind of got scared and closed my eyes. And then I just saw kind of white. And then I guess I passed out. The next morning, I just said, and I want to get the hell out of here. I don't want to take a shower. I just want to go. And my friend was like, yeah, that was a weird night. And I said, yeah, let's just go. And she goes, let's not stop till we get to Petaluma.
yeah, Petaluma. I
Just,
know all these places.
yeah, just keep going. And driving, there was nobody around. It was a beautiful day. And we were just sitting there. I was driving and I looked down at the speedometer And I looked back up and there was a car in front of me. And I said, well, where did the car come from? Where did this car come from? There's no roads. And I said, did you see this car get on the road? She goes, no. And I didn't understand where that car came from. So to me, something weird happened there. That's not the only time that I had that kind of thing happen where, because in 94, me and like 3 other people were on our way to Jackson, and we were on Highway 16. There's nothing out there. And I'm driving, and we're going to meet relatives up in a restaurant. And we're driving, and there's this older blue car in front of me, and it's kind of going slow. And I go, should I pass this guy? Because he's just in my way. And they go, yeah, just pass him. So I passed him, and I left him in the dust. So we get to Martell, which is the small little town. Then there's nothing out there in this road, right? So we get to Martell, and there was some kind of road construction going on. So we had to kind of stop and wait. And that blue car was in front of me. And I said, hey, isn't that the blue car that I passed up miles back? And they're like, oh my God, how did that happen? And I was like, I
Thinking about the Twilight Zone, obviously,
I was
is what
like,
I do.
this is crazy. Like there was no way, because this car was distinct, right? It was an older model. It was this powder blue. And yeah, there was no way. And so I don't know what was going on with these kind of things, but I had a lot of paranormal and stuff. But what I did was, I subscribed to UFO magazine, and in 1990, they profiled a hypnotherapist, and her name was Helen Billings. And I was reading about her, and I said, hey, I should go to her and try to find out what had happened, right? When I was a kid. And so I went to see her, and I was regressed, but she kept saying I was being blocked, right?
That happens.
And she brought me out, and she said, can I ask you something? And I said, yes. She goes, are you ready to know the truth? And I just looked at her like, oh, no, 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 I'm not. Because I really had some reservation about, I don't know. I wanted to know, but then I wasn't sure, She said, well, let me try something else. So she put me back under. She asked me, when's the first time you saw a UFO? I knew the answer, but that's not what I said. I started to talk about the canoe people. And she said, tell me about the canoe people. And I said, they're people from the stars, and they come in this like canoe shaped thing from the sky, from the stars. And I could see this cylindrical object sitting on the desert floor while I was explaining this. And she said, well, who are you? And I was this Native American boy. And
I was just going to ask. Yeah.
I was standing on this ledge looking down, and I talked about the fact that these canoe people came, and they always talked to my father, who was the chief of our tribe. So it was very interesting how
I'd
that all
say.
came out.
Do you have Native American ancestry?
In this life,
Hmm?
no,
No.
no,
Okay. I'm just
no.
curious.
So she had
Well,
asked me
what you're
what year. Yeah, she had asked me what year it was, and I think I'd answered like the early 1800s. So it was the 1800s. But I looked down at myself, and I saw what I was wearing, just this like loin type cloth, and I knew how it was made and everything. It was interesting. So anyway, So I continued to have a lot of paranormal events, a lot of UFO sightings. Um, and I had, in 96, went to the Monroe Institute to learn about going out of your body and all that, because I really felt um, I was already doing that
Hmm.
at night.
Hmm.
And
I think
so
a lot of us do, and not even aware of it.
yeah. And so I continued to have these UFO sightings. I had moved to Oregon, and I became the chief investigator for MUFON up there. In 2009, I joined the SIP project, MUFON SIP project, that was funded by Robert Bigelow. And it was really a cool thing because I was getting paid to be a field investigator for the very
Wow.
first time. Yeah, that
Yeah,
was,
none of us get paid.
yeah.
I get a nickel 98 from YouTube, but I'm not in it for the money. I
Right.
have I have some money. So
But oh yeah, and it was really amazing going out. I was deployed about 3 or 4 times. In this, I was the only SIP investigator for the state of Oregon, and I had a blast. It was just so amazing. I also got hired to be one of the dispatch for the database for MUFON, and that's where I met Denise Stoner and ultimately Kathy Martin. Um, but yeah, I learned a lot being a part of that project, because there was a lot of protocol that you had to do, especially when we had to write up the reports that
mhm.
you got paid to do. Not only did they pay you to go out on these live investigations, but they paid you to do the report. Um, and so I loved it. But that ended in 2010, and I moved back to Northern California and continued to have UFO sightings here. I was having UFO sightings there in Oregon. In fact, what was interesting was in September of 2008, um, in Oregon, I got in a car accident. And that night I was sitting there on the couch, kind of relaxing, because I ended up having like a small concussion and everything from the accident. And where I was living in Portland, near Portland, right? The Portland area. And
Mhm.
I was probably no more than 5 miles from PDX. And they ended up having, if you know that airport, they have the National Guard there. And if you're sitting on the tarmac in an airplane, you can actually, and I could see all their F-16s and stuff. Well, they would deploy those. And that night, as I was sitting on the couch, I heard jets going over my house. And I was thinking, what the heck? Something's going on. And I wasn't feeling well from the car accident, so I didn't get up off the couch to go outside. The next night, it happened again. And I ended up running outside and standing there looking west, and there were three red lights like this in a horizontal pattern. And I was thinking, well, what is that? This thing ends up coming over me, and at arm's length, it must have been like this huge. I could throw a rock and hit it. What was unusual about this craft was underneath it, it had like 7 to 9 lights in a triangular pattern underneath. This thing was huge, and it was dark outside, so I couldn't really see the color, but it
So
seemed
it was very black. It was black. You really couldn't make out the outline of it, and yet
I
you could
couldn't.
see
It no.
in the bottom of it was sprinkled with lights.
Well, it was 7 to 9 lights in a
Right.
triangular pattern. So
Hmm.
like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You know what I mean? Like that.
Right. Were they very
Um,
bright?
They were bright. But it was the strangest thing. I couldn't identify what this was.
And it made
And
no
I
sound?
What was that?
It made no sound.
There was a slight noise, but I couldn't really identify what it was. There was some kind of noise that it made, um, but it wasn't loud, like a jet or anything. Um, and it just continued east, and I lost it in the trees and everything. But what was interesting was uh, a UFO report came in that night where a guy that lived about a mile from me around the same time that the jets were flying around,
Hmm.
he saw them chase an object. And I went to do a live investigation with him. And yeah, so he talked all about watching, he was outside smoking a cigarette, watching these jets chase this object that was just playing cat and mouse with him. So
I've,
I
I've
felt
been
that was
I've,
interesting.
I've been witness to that.
Yeah. So basically, fast forward, I was wanting to write a book about being a UFO investigator because I felt that whatever happened to me when I was young played a huge uh, part in me becoming an investigator. And so I wanted to write this book, and I was trying to get it all together, and I decided it was time to go back and be regressed. So in 2019, I went to a local hypnotherapist here, Lori McDonald, and
Know the name, yeah.
so I ended up being regressed by her and in her studio, and she had a really hard time with the block. Uh, but what she did, because the sessions were tape recorded, and I ended up transcribing them and putting in the book. So it's chapter 7 has everything that was said. But I realized what she did was she changed up the wording to get me past that block. So something was blocking me because when she was saying, she was asking me about being in the tree, and I kept telling her, or she said, well, what are you doing up there? And I said, well, I'm just spying on the kids. And then I said, I think my cat is up here. And she says, your cat? And I said, yeah. And she said, well, how do you know it's your cat?
Mhm.
And I said, I don't know. I I think it's my cat. She goes, can you see it? And I said, she goes, is it looking at you? I go, no, it's not looking at me. It doesn't have a face, is what I said. And she goes, huh. Like, all right. And she goes, well, where's it at? And I go, well, it's on a, I don't even know how it's sitting up on a branch because it would be too heavy to be on the branch. So it didn't make any sense, is what that came across. But so now she says, and then what happened? And then I says, well, I'm floating. And she said, well, where are you? And I said, I'm floating. I could see my body. And she said, okay, and now where are you? And I said, I'm just seeing a deep blue. And that's when she was changing words around to get me to get past everything. And that's when whatever she said, I could now see this entity. And so she says, what do you see? And I was like, oh, it's a little pudgy. I said a little short thing that's wrinkly. And so she said,
Huh.
what do you mean wrinkly? And I said, well, I said it has where the nose is wrinkly. And I felt sorry for it because I thought it was like born disfigured or something, or it got hurt. And I was feeling bad for it. And I was thinking, oh, you poor thing.
Hmm.
and and it's looking at me, and it's short, and it has a round head, and it has regular eyes, but they're bigger. And I can see it as a pupil and everything, but and it's just looking at me. And I said, what am I doing here? Why am I here? And it said, why are you asking that? It said, um, we've been together before. And she was asking me to find out, like, well, why, what is it? What it is, what does he want? And I was told they're watching me grow. And that's when, so she says, well, where are you? What are you? Where are you? And I says, I'm on something hard, like a hard table, right? Like something hard. And I'm laying there, and the little being that it's standing at the foot of where my feet are. But now something's like here, and I can't move my head, but I can move my eyes, and something's coming down like this over my face, like by my face. And I'm looking, and it has a big head with a big black eye, and it's tall and thin, and its neck is thin. And all I can think about was staring at that neck, that impossibly thin neck, and how it's holding up that head.
Yeah.
And I'm getting the impression that it's like a spider to me, like a standing up human, tall, like standing on its legs, spider, tall and thin. And oh, I was
A
just,
lot of people do describe that or feel that from seeing them. Um,
it was freaking me out, because I couldn't understand how a bug is that big and tall, just it was creepy. And I just came right out of the whole regression,
wow.
because I couldn't handle what I was seeing.
So it was like my painting that you have a copy of.
Well, side view, because it wasn't facing me like this.
Right.
It was coming. I only saw that eye, that one
Right.
side of the eye, and so the head was, you know what I mean. So
Sure.
it was putting that eye, like that big
Right
black.
up close to your face, which is something they do.
Yeah, and I was not happy about that. And
A lot of people describe those taller grays beings like that as the praying mantis, but I don't really think they're an insect. I just think that's something that a lot of human beings are familiar with. So when they're in that situation and they see the eyes are that large and that pointed chin and the big head, they imagine that, or not imagine, but they think that's closest thing to it. But I think it's really another form of gray.
right, and I think that, just like, when I talk to witnesses, both UFO and experiencers, and I'm talking to them, and you're trying to describe stuff that you're not familiar with, um, and it's I talk about this in my book as far as perception. We we describe things based on our perception of what we know, what we're familiar with. I remember when
Correct.
there was a Mexican case, and they asked him, what was the shape? What did the UFO look like? And he said, a sombrero.
Sombrero,
Okay.
I know. Just like the one I saw with Roger Lear all those years ago in Camarillo.
Right. So this is his perception. This is what he's going to say, because that's what he associates it with.
Sure.
So when
But I
you,
even did that
right,
because it looked like a sombrero. I'm looking
right,
at the binoculars and Roger's like, "What does it look like?" And I said, "It looks like a sombrero. It's
right.
flowing." Yeah.
And so my perception of that entity was that it was a spider standing up on its 2 legs or something. It just was
It makes
tall.
perfect sense to me.
And, the body. See, at that time of my life, I had never seen a praying mantis. I didn't know what a praying mantis was, so I didn't associate it with that.
Yeah.
Of course, a lot of people going forward, that's what they were associating what they saw with these beings as being like praying mantis types. But yeah, it's similar, because of the thin arms and the thin legs, and then there's that body that. Oh.
Yes.
And I've
Yeah.
had a lifelong fear. I mean, spider. I can't. I'll burn the house down. Just, I cannot stand
Well,
spiders. It's. Oh hell no.
a lot of people can't, but it's true that 90% or more of spiders that are in your house, with the rare exception of a few species I can think of, are harmless, and they do more good for you than bad. So, but they are unsettling to people.
Oh God, yes. And did you know I don't know where I was reading this or I saw a video or something. They were talking about the Nazca lines, right?
Right?
Up in, so you have to be up in the air to see those etchings of, and there's a spider, right?
Yeah,
And
there is.
someone said they said that spider represented the spider beings that came here long ago, and they said they're like 6, 7 feet tall, and that they don't come anymore because they know that humans are deathly afraid of them. And when I heard
Huh?
that, I was like, huh, wow. I
Did you
was like, oh
did you see
God,
the movie? Did you see the movie The Spaceman?
the spaceman. Who's in that? I don't
Oh
know if I
God,
did.
I'm
Spaceman?
drawing a blank. I'm drawing a blank on his name. Uh, uh, Sandler. What's his first name? Sandler's last name.
Oh,
Canadian.
Adam? Adam
Sandler.
Sandler?
Yes. And he's in this film where he's an astronaut and he's all by himself and he's way out in space and he finds himself coming face to face with this pretty large spider that got into the craft, and it is highly intelligent, and they have a relationship. I mean, he communicates with it. It's from a spider race, and it's an
Oh
excellent
boy.
movie.
Is that a
uh,
new one? Is that a new movie?
no, he did it a few years ago, and he did it because he wanted to do the film. It wasn't comic at all. It was a beautiful movie, a beautiful ending, and has so much to say. So it's
Hmm.
really interesting that you would bring that up.
Huh.
Yeah, it's called The Spaceman with
The
Adam
spaceman.
Sandler. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I'm gonna have to check that out. I don't
you would
know.
you would like that film, even though it is spiders. This spider is actually huggable. You will
Oh,
find.
oh yeah.
Because it's really not about how something looks, it's about its intentions and its being, its soul, its spirit. And if something's a loving
Well,
spirit, it's in the body of a spider, or if it's in the body of a human, or in the body of an elephant, it's a beautiful spirit. And I think it's important that we have that. It may Watching the movie may help you get over your fear of spiders. I don't know.
maybe. Well, like I said, Steve, I'm very visual. I'm a visual person, so like, I don't know. I just, yeah.
Where can people get your book?
On Amazon,
On Amazon. Okay.
yes, yes. UFO Investigator, a personal look into circumstance, investigations, and discovery. Yes, that is, yeah. So it tells the story, how what happened to me. And it profiles 30 of my close encounter cases that I did, because obviously I'm going to be talking about
30.
the
Wow.
UFO investigator. Yeah. And well, I mean, 30, I wish I would have put more, because I've done 1,200 cases, over 1,200 cases now for MUFON, but in 2 states.
Wow.
Um, but yeah, you know, I just want to say that there's a couple stories in here about how two people, separate people, two men, who've had a close encounter, and how it's ruined their lives. They were so scared, and changed their lives forever in a negative way, which I felt always bad. Um, One guy, um, he loved fishing, and he was living in San Jose, and he had went to like Monterey Bay on his boat with his brother, and they were out there in the early morning, and the fog was still there, a little bit of blue sky, but there was a huge object that was hovering above them, and it that wasn't what freaked him out so much as the fact that he couldn't remember how they even got home. He couldn't remember it. And that bothered him so much that he never went fishing ever again. And that beautiful boat just sits there. And so it impacts people in different ways. And, you can hear the emotion
Oh
from
yeah,
these people when they're reliving this stuff, and their voice gets shaky. They're almost ready to kind of start crying, because it's traumatic.
it
and
is.
a lot of times, these people, they didn't ever expect that they'd have any kind of experience like this, and it's changed everything for them. And unfortunately, for these two guys, yeah, it was not a good thing. But I always try to just be compassionate and listen, and
Of course.
you know uh, of course, I'm always fascinated by what they see, uh, as far as the craft itself. Um, but yeah, I just sent MUFON, um, one of my cases. I did two already, and they made the cover of the journal.
Hmm.
One was in 2023, and the other one was last year. And I just submitted another one. And this one is one of the traumatic ones that I wanted to say. And I'm hoping that it will be in the October journal. Uh, but this guy was in Yosemite at the time, and him and his pregnant wife were being chased by this huge house-size UFO, and throughout the valley, the Yosemite area, in the middle of the night. And there was a lot of missing time, and yeah, and uh, it really disturbed him, and it changed his life forever, and in a bad way.
It changes everybody's life forever. And in my travels with this and the people I've known, that it usually can begin that way. And if they look into the experience deeply enough, they'll find out that it's been happening all along and they just don't remember it. And if they start to understand what's happening to them and they talk to other people who have the experiences and they try to uh, understand the intention behind it, as they evolve and mature with the phenomenon, they begin to appreciate it and appreciate it, what it's done for them. I mean, the way Deb ended her story today that I was editing, and it is finished. She looks right at the camera and says, I would never go back to before this happened and not have it happen in my life, because I wouldn't be the person I am today. I'm awake.
Yeah,
I'm aware. I know things about my existence and my awareness that I would never have otherwise. So, and with some
yeah,
people, it just takes time, but also there are some people that are so afraid, and it depends on everyone's personal background and how they've grown up and what they believe in the religion and everything else. Some of them will always be afraid, will not want it in their life. And what they have to do is ask the the consciousness, the non-human intelligence, the beings, the grays, whatever it may be, to not do it anymore. And I know
hmm
everyone who has asked them to back off, I just want to live my life, they have. But unfortunately, it doesn't remove the trauma.
Right, right. Well, I suspect that I've had a lot more than what I remember. So,
It's there.
oh yeah,
It absolutely is there.
yep,
Wow, Dev, well, it's been great talking to you. And I mean, we've known of each other for years and years and years. And this is really the first time we've spent any time together talking. So that was a real pleasure. In closing, is there anything that you'd like to share? Not that you haven't shared a great deal already, but just is there anything on your mind that about what you're doing next, or how you look at this phenomenon and how it may benefit humanity itself, that you want to share with us?
Well, I just wanted to say that I'm thankful that I went down this path. This is my life. There has not been a single day since what happened to me when I was a kid that I haven't thought about UFOs every day of my life. And it's put me in this position where I'm doing what I love. I love talking with people and learning about what they experienced, what they saw. I get so excited when someone sends me a drawing of their close encounter um, craft of what they saw. And it's amazing. And I want to help people to be comfortable sharing with me. I'm always offering to, if they do go under hypnotherapy, hypnosis, and they want to talk to someone, I'm here for them. I share with them a little bit about my experience and that I understand where they're coming from. So I just want to always be there for others. So,
Yeah, helping people and putting a smile on their faces is a really big part of this. I think probably the biggest part, because we can all work together uh, and help people come to terms with this. Because the thing about it is, like I said, if you don't ask it to go away, it's not going to. Uh,
right.
I would not want it to go away. So, Deb, thank you so much for being on
Thank
in
you.
conversation with and breaking the silence and being someone who's part of the community and sticking with us for 2 years now. And I look forward to more in the future.
Thank you so much for having me, Steve. And I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.